Good evening and welcome to the Beaufort County Board of Education business meeting of October 15, 2024. This meeting is being conducted via hybrid video conferencing and is also being live streamed by the county channel. Our first order of business tonight is the swearing-in ceremony for our new board member, Dr. David Carr.
Congratulations, Mr. Carr. I'll ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, David Carr, do solemnly swear
that I am qualified according to the Constitution of the State of South Carolina
that I am duly qualified under the
to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been elected,
to exercise the duties to the office to which
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of this state
and preserve, protect, and defend
and of the United States of America.
and of the United States of America.
Further, as a board member of the Beaufort County Board of Education,
Further, as a board member of the Beaufort County Board of Education,
I will fairly and impartially, to the best of my ability and skill,
I will fairly
and impartially, to the best of my ability and skill, exercise the trust imposed of me,
exercise the trust imposed
and I will use my best endeavors
and I will use my best endeavors
to preserve and carry into effect, according to the law,
to preserve and carry into effect according to the law,
for the purposes for which I have been elected, so help me God.
for the purposes to which I've been elected, so
Congratulations.
Welcome, Dr. Carr. So our first business action is going to be related to matters that we discussed in executive session, and since you are not seated yet, you have the opportunity to either vote yes or no if you would like, even though you were not present, or you may abstain. So, Colonel Geyer, do we have any action as necessary or appropriate regarding matters that were discussed in executive session?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have three motions. Number one, I move the board authorize the superintendent to issue an award for construction manager at Risk Services to Thompson Turner Construction for Ladies Island Middle School, Replacement School on Active Campus, and McKnight Construction Company Incorporated for the new Early Childhood Center in Bluffton, as described in RFP Request for Proposal number 25-004. The board authorizes the superintendent to execute a contract with the contractors upon the expiration of the protest period.
Second.
Okay, second was made by Victor Ney. Any discussion? There being no hands up. All those in favor of this motion present in the room, please raise your hand if you're in favor. Aye.
Aye.
Do we have any nays in the room or any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Dr. Carr abstains. And then online, we have Elizabeth Hay. Hay, aye. All right, so the motion carries 801. Colonel Geyer.
Madam Chair, I move the Board of Education approve amendment number 36 with Thompson Turner Construction Incorporated for the construction of the new May River High School cafeteria addition based on a guaranteed maximum price of $2,100,979.
Okay, second was made by Earl Campbell. Mr. Smith?
I have a question. In this contract, because I know that Thompson Constructions is getting they're getting awarded two contracts tonight. Has it been put in there a clause if they are not on time, deadline date if the construction is not on time, because I know that they have two projects? Would that be in the contract? So,
Yes, sir. The contract will specify the date that both projects have to be completed, and they will have penalties attached to them if they do not complete them by that date.
thank you very much.
All right, there being no further hands up, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Online? Hey, aye. Any nays? And abstentions? Dr. Carr. So the motion carries 801.
Madam Chair, I move the Board of Education approve amendment number 37 with Thompson Turner Construction for the construction of the new May River High School CTE building addition, renovation, and outfitting based on the guaranteed maximum price of $13,757,228.
Second by Chloe Gordon. Any discussion? There being no hands up, all those in favor of the motion in the room, please say aye. Aye. Online? Hey, aye. Any nays? Abstention? Dr. Carr. The motion carries 801. I think that concludes your motions coming out of
Yes, Madam
executive
Chair.
session. Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Herbert Berg. Dr. Berg is going to deliver a statement and apology regarding the lawsuit that has recently ended.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Rodriguez. My name is Herbert Berg. I served the district as its interim superintendent in 2018 to 2019. I'm proud of the district's accomplishments during my time as its interim superintendent, and those accomplishments that have occurred since my departure, leading the successful 2019 bond referendum. About 2 years after I left the district, in June of 2021, Board Trustee William Smith brought a lawsuit against the board, the district, the board chair, Dr. Christina Gotts, Board Trustee Colonel Richard Geyer, the district's Director of Security, David Grisham, and me. In his lawsuit, Smith accused the defendants, including me, of various claims, including defamation, conspiracy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, invasion of privacy, and various other state constitutional violations. On October 3, 2024, after over 3 years of expensive, time-consuming, and stressful litigation, and after a trial in Beaufort that lasted nearly 3 weeks, each of Smith's claims against every one of the defendants, including me, were rejected by the court or the jury. One of Smith's claims against me personally was I claimed for written defamation or libel concerning an email that I wrote and sent to the board chairman June 25, 2019. While the jury found that Smith did not prove his claim against me for written defamation, the jury indicated that, quote, it would like for Dr. Berg to make a formal apology to be presented at the next general session board meeting, unquote. The jury also indicated there needs, quote, to be a published version of the local paper, in the local paper, apologizing for the inaccuracies that were previously printed about Mr. Smith regarding the CWP. Prior to sending the email to Dr. Grotz on June 25, 2019, I had received 4 separate harassment complaints from district employees against Smith, who had joined the board in January of 2019. One of the claims rejected by the jury was Smith's claim that I conspired with employees to fabricate their claims of harassment against him. Also prior to the email of June 25, 2019, the district had received messages concerning Smith's conduct from the Beaufort Police Department and the State Department of Education. I also received a report that Smith had unsuccessfully attempted to enter school buildings during evening hours. Because of these circumstances, I was concerned that there might be a security issue for the district staff, board members, especially since the board was scheduled to discuss the employee grievances against Smith at the board meeting of June 25. Before that meeting, I asked David Grisham if he could find out whether Smith possessed a concealed weapons permit, a CWP. Grisham contacted a law enforcement colleague and found that Grisham could not do so. When he reported this to me, I mistakenly thought that Grisham told me that Smith did not have a CWP. I reported this inaccurate information in my email to Dr. Gwatz, in which I stated, quote, "Will has no concealed permit per David G," unquote. Unbeknownst to me at the time, Smith had a CWP. Even if the email is not actionable written defamation, I apologize for making that error. After I left the district, this email was released to local media pursuant to a request under the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA. Over 6 months after I left the district, the email was discussed in an article published by the Island Packet. One of these articles, Smith accused me of pulling that information illegally, unquote. At trial, the General Counsel of the State Law Enforcement Division, SLED, confirmed that SLED has no record of any inquiry concerning Smith's CWP records. Liz Farrell also wrote an opinion editorial in the Island Packet on January 28, 2020, in which she opined that Smith has a responsibility of the public to directly and appropriately address this issue. If he can't do that, then he should resign, unquote. Of course, Ms. Farrell presumably expressed her own opinion. While I was contacted about the article by district staff, I did not speak with Ms. Farrell about it, and I do not necessarily join her opinion. To the extent that any media report was based on the inaccuracy in my email of June 25, 2019 concerning Smith's possession of a CWP, I apologize for that inaccuracy. In sum, I'm proud of my district service and wish the board, its members in the district, and its employees well in their future endeavors. I am especially thankful for the outcome of Smith's lawsuit and hope that it permits the board, its members, and the district and its employees to move forward successfully. Thank you.
Next, we need a motion of approval of the agenda. Okay, Mr. Dallas, a second? Okay, Mr. Nay? Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda? Present in the room, please raise your hand and say aye. 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 Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, Mr. Smith. And then online?
Aye.
All right, the agenda is approved, 801. Next we have the student performance. Oh, yeah, that's not on here. Thank you. Thank you kindly. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing as we have a moment of silence for two individuals that recently passed away. Dr. Barbara Nielsen of Hilton Head Island passed away on September 3rd, 2024. She was the first woman to ever be elected as South Carolina's Superintendent of Education and served 2 consecutive terms from 1991 to 1999. Dr. Otis C. Smith passed away on October 8, 2024. He started his career with the school district on October 1, 1973. He served in the areas as a math teacher at the middle school and high school levels, assistant principal, director of adult education, associate personnel, director, recruiter, and the assistant superintendent for human resources. After his retirement from the district, he continued to work with the adult education program. Please be seated. Next, we have the Seahawk Singers under the direction of Kathleen Morris Rowe. They will be singing one piece, an Appalachian hymn that was arranged by David Moore, and they're going to face the audience, so if the board members would like to stand and go on to the sides, we will be able to see them.
I know I got a wonderful introduction. I'm sure you won't be disappointed, so enjoy.
I was singing with my sisters. I was singing with my friends. And we all can sing together, 'cause the circle never ends. Circle be unbroken, by and by, Lord, by and by. There's a better home awaiting, if we try, Lord, if we try. I was born down in the valley where the sun refused to shine. But I'm climbing up to the highway, gonna make that mountain mine. Will the circle be unbroken, by and by, Lord, by and by. There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. In the sky, Lord. In the sky.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you to the Hilton Head High Honor Singers for beautiful performance. Next, we have points of celebration. Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Dr. Gwads. This evening on points of celebration, we have the September Student of the Month for Southern Beaufort County. Character Education Student of the Month of September. Our character education program was formed to support parents' efforts to develop good character in their children. And tonight, we're celebrating the Character Education Student of the Month, exhibiting the character trait of acceptance. Acceptance is defined as the action or process of being received as adequate or suitable, typically to be admitted into a group or received by others. September's Student of the Month for Southern Beaufort County is Kensley Schultz, a fourth grade student from Red Cedar Elementary School. And here to introduce Kensley is school counselor Dr. Rebecca Hannes. Kensley, if you would come forward as well, and then if family members are here, if you would come forward as well.
Hi, I'm Dr. Becky Hanna, the school counselor at Red Cedar Elementary.
That's nice.
And I'm so happy to introduce you to Kensley Schultz, and her mother is here, and her stepdad, and her father and stepmother and grandparents are here today. And I would just like to say that Kensley was noted by her teachers and her students at school by saying these things. When we talk to our students about the character trait of acceptance, we talk about multiple aspects of it, including accepting others and accepting responsibility for our actions. Our character ed nomination for acceptance is Kensley, and she actively seeks to include others, whether in group activities or in casual conversations, demonstrating a profound understanding that everyone has unique qualities that deserve respect and appreciation. Her kindness and open-mindedness create an environment where everyone feels valued, making our school a more inclusive place. Here's what some of her classmates have to say about her. I'm new this year, and Kensley has been my friend. She plays with me, especially when I have no one else to play with. She cheers me up if I'm sad. Kensley helps everyone. She wants us all to feel included. Kensley is always kind to everyone. She is never mean or says mean things. Congratulations, Kensley.
Dr. Gwads, that concludes our points of celebration this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Next, we have our first public comments, and we have Anthony Cambria. His topic is academics performance.
Education Board. These comments are a follow-up to an email that I sent you all over the district server this weekend. There are speculations that district officials conveniently gloss over facts when providing valuable and pertinent information. Others believe that you don't have complete and comprehensive data. Perhaps what you are about to hear may be difficult. It may be upsetting or possibly create anger. That is not my intention. I do want to stimulate, motivate, and challenge your core values as trustees. When every request for resources provided, shouldn't students' performance in academic be an expectation? A minimum at the state level, I think, would be adequate. In 2019, 20% of third grade cohort were not on grade level in mathematics. Today, almost 45% of that cohort are not on grade level. 5 years later, and millions of dollars of so-called investments in students, and sadly, Beaufort County performance is at or below the state level. You have heard from me on multiple occasions, unfortunately, without any reaction, feedback, or engagement. Is that the standard operating procedure for this board, this administration, or maybe it even goes down to the teacher's level? Why wouldn't students who invest hundreds of days and thousands of hours year after year, yet experiencing the same results, not give up? When that occurs, students, families, communities all suffer. Many contend and believe that schools do have the capacity to close the gaps. They simply lack the will and the courage to do so. Courage must exist in leaders. The Board of Education is the leader of this district. You must expect excellence and embrace accountability. Mediocrity and stagnation is unacceptable. Do not hold yourselves fully responsible, because it is impossible to provide oversight without full information. It is commendable that you have provided any resource that's been requested, financially, structurally, resources across the board. Perhaps the superintendent could provide for you the same courtesy. Demand the same respect. The students, the teachers are depending on you.
Your time is up, Mr. Cambria.
Can and
Mr.
must do
Cambria, your
one
time
better.
is up.
Thank you so much.
That concludes our first public comments. We are now on to the chair report, and the Board of Education would like to welcome its newest member, Dr. David Carr, who was sworn in tonight. He represents District 7 and was elected in a special election this fall. So welcome, and we look forward to working with you and having an infusion of perhaps some new and different ideas. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate being here and glad to be here.
Since it is October, it is the time of year that the Board of Education does its performance evaluation on our one employee, and that is Dr. Frank Rodriguez, the superintendent of our school district. So I'm just announcing that tonight, and Robin and Molly, or probably Robin, will be contacting the board members to try to get dates that will work for everybody for doing the evaluation. And it usually requires us to have a special called meeting, usually twice, and perhaps even a third one, but it requires more than one meeting. All right, we are now on to the committee reports, and we have academics reporting by the chair, Chloe Gordon.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. The Academic Committee met on October the 3rd. Dr. Stratus introduce Ms. Latasha Middleton, Director of School Counselor, who informed the committee of the updates to the following administrative regulations. SS-3, assignment of students to schools, and SS-60, home visits. Dr. Stratus presented OE 12.1 through 17, instructional program, and the evidence for each section. OE 12-1 through 17 was recommended by the committee to be placed on the consent agenda. School Health Advisory Council. The Beaufort County School District Health Advisory Committee convened 3 times since August 1, 2024. To date, the committee has completed their initial review of the middle school health education curriculum. The high school health education curriculum will undergo its initial review at the next committee meeting on October 21, 2024. The Health Advisory Committee is currently accepting applications for membership to fill the following vacancies: community member, health professor, a student. The student must be president of their high school student body, and a teacher. Interested applicants can complete the necessary form located on the district website under the Beaufort County School District Health Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Do we have any questions or comments from board members? Mr. Ney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was looking, during the pre-read, I was looking at SS-3, under Section 16. The AR is not, we don't have to vote on approval, right? They're just academic.
Correct. ARs are just presented to the board, so we're aware of them, but they do not have to be approved by the board or accepted by the board.
I was just looking, I was a little concerned about it. It looks like Roman numeral 16 is just kind of thrown together. The formatting is off, some things are stricken. I'm not real sure what this is supposed to say. There's some contradictory language in here. I can give you examples if you like, but I'm concerned about what is coming in front of the board. I know it's just for information, but I'm a little confused about that. And then SS 60, regarding the home visits, there's nothing in the, and I know this is a new AR, but there's nothing in the AR that states the criteria that triggers a home visit, unless I missed it. Is there anything in there that says that?
Well, does the administration want to address this?
Dr. Stratos is coming forward.
Stratus will be up momentarily. Thank you for your question. Where did you see?
If you look at Roman numeral 3, that to me says why they're having home visits.
Good evening, Madam Chair. So for SS3, Roman numeral 16, the expectation is a review of that Roman numeral, sir?
Yes. For example, letter D is dark. It's a black letter, which means it existed in the prior revision, right?
That's a format, yes, sir. They could have, yes, sir.
But the text after is all red, which means it's new text. So was D in the prior iteration but blank?
D was not in the prior format. It is a formatting error that it should be in red. And
Okay,
that
gotcha.
correction, yes, sir.
And then also, if you're using the number format, under D, it should be 1 and 2, not A and B.
It should
And same
go-
thing for AE, right?
Alpha D, then it should be followed with numeric 1, 2.
Correct. All right, that's what, and then in number E, or letter E, sorry, what is B?
Same reiteration.
Yeah, but letter B, it says, for elementary schools beginning the second quarter, principals must notify the committee and parent guardian if a student is being reassigned. The rest of the verbiage says recommend.
I want to just catch up to you, sir, and I do apologize. Beginning with the second quarter, principals must notify the committee and the parent legal guardian if a student is being reassigned.
Right.
And then you're referencing the rest.
All the rest of the verbiage for that says the principal recommends reassignment to the committee. So that EB, or what is supposed to be E2, kind of is contradictory. It makes it sound like the principal has sole discretion to reassign, as opposed to recommend to the committee.
I think prior in the reading, it does refer that there is a committee for reassignment. The understanding that was a blanket clause, but that can be explicit within alpha E in order to make it a little more definitive within numeric 2.
Right.
Point taken.
Awesome, thank you. And then for SS 60, I was just wondering what criteria, I understand why the home visits happen, and I see that where it's listed, thank you, Madam Chair, in numeral 3, Roman numeral 3, but what are the criteria that triggers a home visit? I was looking for something that might have said criteria could be as follow but not limited to, and then maybe some recommendations or things that trigger a home visit, because I think people, parents deserve to know if they do something, then they're going to get a home visit.
Point taken. I will share with our Student Services Division, sir, in order to put that actually within probably Roman numeral 1 or 2, that the following criteria will be utilized with the exception of some discretion because there may be emergency situations for health check as well.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Ms. Gordon, does that conclude your report?
Yes,
Yes.
that concludes the academic report.
Okay, Mr.
Any
Smith?
more questions, Mrs. Smith?
Yes, did I hear you say that you were moving the OE to the consent agenda? Are you asking to move the OE to the consent agenda?
The OE is in the consent agenda.
It is consent, yeah.
Okay, I thought I heard her say that she was asking, that she was asking for a motion to move the consent.
On the agenda, it's in the consent.
Okay, right.
Good.
Yeah, right, but I thought I heard, so I just want to get clarification on that.
No, for sure.
And also, in that OE, is guidance counselors discussed it?
Dr. Stratus? Are you talking about the OE 12?
Yes, ma'am, is guidance counselors discussed in OE 12?
I think.
Mr. Smith, I do apologize. You had a question regarding school counselors in OE 12. I believe their section is 12.17. I just didn't catch the first part of your question. I do apologize. And board members, you do have a copy in your yellow binder, and I set it up by sections for you for any point of reference.
Yeah, I thank you for that. I appreciate your work on that. My question was to my colleague was that in this OE, because I know that the board do votes for and approve of OEs, and I've had several questions about guidance counselors, and I apologize that I went at that meeting. And so my question is, and I guess you've answered it, that guidance, the description, who, where, what, when, why, and how was discussed at that meeting at length about guidance counselors, so that those processes that are in place.
So our OE 12 does have a reference for school counselors on the availability of our students to have access to school counselors. That component is generally under 12.17, but we presented there for evidence, gave the ratio of schools that have the students to school counselors, and that we meet the state as well as national standards. You, the board, have been very generous at that racial distribution. That is generally a 350 to 1 ratio, and as a system, we do meet that.
Thank you. well, at this juncture, I mean, I just wanted to put the board, I've had a lot of questions in terms of the guidance department and what that looks like in graduation processes and different things of that nature. So I know the director of guidance is not here. I'm not sure whether she was at that meeting, but I think that at this meeting, because of the large amount of questions I think that I've had, and I've heard my colleagues along the way, some of them have had them in the last couple of months, I think it would have been very, it would have been very helpful to have her to present to this meeting today. And I just want to put that on the record, that I will be requesting for her to come to this public meeting, because I've had a lot of questions asked about the guidance department and about different questions about guidance. So, and that's something I have. I mean, I know we all can say that I have been consistent in saying and in the past that I thought that it would be very important for her to come and address the public, because the public had a lot of questions in terms of guidance and what that looked like. So I just wanted to put that on record and see if that's something that we could possibly get done in the future. Thank you.
I would just add, Mr. Smith, if you've encountered people in the public who have a lot of questions for you about this, our team is fully available to speak with members of the public so that we can address any questions or concerns that they have. We're happy to do it here at a meeting, but that just means it goes 2 weeks before people get answers, or 4 weeks, or whatever it is. We're happy to address it. If you ask them to reach out to us, or if you let me know who they are, I'll make sure that my team reaches out so we can get them what they need.
Well, actually, Dr. Rodriguez, I believe they have been reaching out, and some of it is process information that sometimes that we may have online that we may not have. And I think that the public would like to understand some of the processes in terms of different picking their kids' classrooms. There are several things that I understand that I probably don't want to go into at this junction. But fine. I think it's a little more than just reaching out, because I know that some of them have reached out to you and to
No, they haven't reached out to me about that. But what I would tell you is, if you give me their names, I'm happy to reach out to them, and I'm happy to get my team, and we can do it here too. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But the sooner they get whatever questions they have answered, then the better for them.
Well, I think all around doing it it would be within
whatever your pleasure.
Thank you.
Dr. Rodriguez and Madam Chair, may I just, if it's possible, if we could have those questions in advance and we could prepare information, I'd greatly appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
I think some of them I've already asked. There's some of them I've asked along the way. Some of them we talked about, and some of them I believe at some point I've brought them all to Dr. Rodriguez and everyone else individually.
Mr. Smith, I certainly don't have a recollection of a conversation about guidance counselors, but I'm happy to have a second conversation with you. If you brought it forward, I'm happy to follow up with you on it, and so we can get it. Ultimately, we just want to get it addressed. So whatever they are, if you share them with me, I'll make sure my team gets it and responds.
Well, I'll just close by saying this. If we go back and we look at, once again, at what I said the first time, if we go back and we look at current board meetings where I have requested that the guidance counselors that come forward, it had been told to me that Mr. Smith, at some point, they do come in OE12, and OE12 has a time to come up, and for last year, we had already did that OE, and OE was coming up, and at this meeting here, I was not here. So that part is on me, but I'm just saying that's been conveyed publicly in meetings on record that I have said that, and I have brought some of those questions up, and I was told that Mr. Smith that's an OE12, and guidance is covered on the OE12, and so that's what hit my memory, my recollection today on that.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
fair, and I think I do recall at one time there was guidance, but it didn't have an explanation of guidance, but there may have been a question on guidance. So I'm gonna reach out to you after the meeting so that you can tell me in the next day or two what specifically it is you're after, so that my team can hone in and focus on whatever need that is.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have operations reporting by Chair Carlton Dallas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Operations Committee met on October the 8th, and we have an executive summary we'd like to share with you. Relative to the 2019 bond referendum, things are coming very, very close to conclusion. One of the last projects that we have to complete was the Robert Smalls Leadership Academy. That had been delayed, but it now has a certificate of occupancy issued by the OSF on September the 9th, and final completion is scheduled to occur on November 9th, 2024. I do want to note that there was some delinquency in performance at Robert Smalls Leadership Academy, and I also have to give in timing and secondary contractors. And I have to give credit to the operations department because they did a root cause analysis of what the cause was. And one of it was that we have to provide delivery schedules. As you look through the materials that are in your binder today, you'll see the major projects have end dates for delivery. That allows us now to exercise the liquidated damages that the operations staff had created for other projects, and now it will apply to those as well. So just wanted to give that highlight. The second thing on the 2019 referendum is we have 30 closeouts remaining. These closeouts have been an irritant in terms of allowing finance to move forward with what they have to do, as well as us being able to disperse roughly $35 million still remaining. It's paid and committed, but it's not dispersed, and that's waiting on closeout. Out of the 30 projects, 11 are assigned and driven by one supplier. And so the group has looked at that, and those type contracts will include a scheduled pre-work, and then they will include liquidated damages, so that there's a encouragement to business partners to move things forward expeditiously. The next thing is on the 2019 bond referendum, with basically that one project remaining in the closeouts, we still have $170,000 in program contingency. So again, we talked about the soft landing. It has been a soft landing to this point, and we're very close. And again, kudos to the operations department as well as the two committee members, Mr. Ney, Ms. Gordon, and the rest of the board for helping move this forward. Moving to the 2023 bond referendum, you'll see that basically all projects are green. It is early, so we share that caveat, but we are very comfortable that how we look at things will help us produce some real, what we call execution with fidelity. So you can depend on what the commitments are. The board earlier approved some projects that are very important in terms of May River High School cafeteria and Career and Technical Education Center, and so a GMP document. So those projects are moving forward, and so that is that part of the construction project. If you will allow me, I'd like to move forward to the custodial. And in the custodial, a couple of things have happened. The transition to 3 different suppliers each of them handling 2 particular geographical areas so that we can compare performance, timeliness, those types of things is fully in effect, and some trends are being identified at this early stage, but efforts are being made to help all 3 of those business partners move forward expeditiously. There has been quite a bit in terms of the way the data is presented. One of the things we recommend is to get an idea of how the organization is performance is to have 3 years of performance. So we can look back and see what this same month, 2 years ago, 1 year ago compared to today. That allows the organization to really sort of pivot and point out and help provide support to the operations and everybody, business partners, contractors, what have you, where we need to be focused, and it allows us to have a digestible amount of data to look at and react to. So very pleased with them in that regard. The other thing we'd like to note is that the preventative maintenance, we had a very robust discussion about preventative maintenance. Does that sort of tie up our resources and sort of slows them down from responding to specific urgent issues? Preventative maintenance is, my experience has been that that's a very good thing to do. It's more ratable, you can plan it, you can allocate your resources much more effectively than using what is known as a break fix methodology for maintenance, which you wait till something breaks, you don't know you're going to have the parts, labor, what have you. So we are definitely in support of continuing the preventative maintenance program. And at that, I'd like to, if I may, ask our colleague, Mr. Robert Otting, to come forward, because one of the things I've learned recently is that there's been so much information that the operations department has already done. Coming from the petroleum industry, one of the things we always looked at is dollars per 1,000 BTUs. So you convert the energy to a very similar statistic across natural gas, propane, coal, crude oil, and you can determine which is the most efficient way of fueling your energy needs. And so, Mr. Otting, if that is okay, sir, I'll defer to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Dallas and Robin. We're going to be talking about the energy report. There you go. And September is the month that the state requires us to file our energy report for the year, and that has been required since 1992. And if you could go and so some of the big things we're looking for, the different kinds of energy and how much of each we're using, we add that up to get an EUI, which is energy, and I'll get to that in just a second. But, and then look at the costs that we have for each building each month. And if you'll stop right there, Robin, this is an example of just a November report that shows all the schools, the amount of energy they use, and breaks it into electricity, natural gas, and propane, and also the total cost. And one thing to note is, makes this even more important, is this year we did get a cost increase from Dominion Energy of about 7%. So that's one of the biggest increases we've had in some time. If you go to the next slide. This slide shows all the schools and the amount they've used throughout the year. It's very small print, so I know it's hard to read, but one of the ones that we pointed out and discussed was actually the district office. Some time ago, we installed a solar field outside the district office, and what you'll see there is the cost for last year. We actually made $13,000. So there was actually no cost for the district office. It's equivalent in size to about Bluffton Middle School, which cost us $150,000. So that just kind of tells you how well that solar field has performed for us. And basically, we're making money off energy at that location. If you go to the next slide, this is what is actually submitted to the state for each of the locations, and this is a totality of the district. One of the big things we look at is the energy use per conditioned square foot. That is basically an EUI that I mentioned earlier, which is an energy use intensity unit, where we basically add up all the energy in BTUs of propane, natural gas, electricity, and come up with a cost per square foot or an amount of energy used per square foot for the entire building. You'll see on there our number is 40, which is a little bit of an increase for us. We have some graphs later on, and I'll go over that. We've been hanging about 36 or 37 kilobTUs. The reason we think for the increase, or one of our struggles, has been coming out of COVID, the balancing between indoor air quality and energy savings. We've leaned ever since COVID more towards indoor air quality. What does that mean? We start our units earlier. The amount of fresh air that we let in is all day long. And that's in order, we learned that in COVID to try to make sure we're changing our air over as much as possible. We've increased our filtration of that air coming in. And so as we come out of COVID, we're going to start going a little bit, or looking a little bit harder on the energy usage. Before it was just indoor air quality is all that matters, that's what's important. Now we also need to work to balance a little bit better with the amount of energy we're using for all of our buildings. Another thing that we realized coming out of that we're going to take into consideration in the future is when we built Robert Smalls, we actually had two buildings running at the same time that counted as one building. So that really hurt Robert Smalls and its energy usage. In the future, and we had a conversation with my staff about this today, we're going to make sure that cost of that construction is broken out so we can separate it from the cost of the building. Go ahead, Robin. Next slide. Keep going to the automated logic section. So for all of our buildings, we have a computer management system that we're able to see how much energy is being used, what the temperatures of the rooms are, what the condition of the HVAC units are, and we have automated logic is our primary software that we use for this. Next slide, Robin. And this just shows how we can get an overlook at our buildings and how they're operating. As you see on the left is actually red cedar. It's all green and yellow. Green means it's meeting temperature. Yellow, it's a little bit off, but not too far off. Red means that you've gone into a problem that needs to be looked into. And all of our buildings in the district have this. Next slide. This just shows at May River High School, the loop water system. This is the kind of detail that we get for all of our equipment, see what equipment's running, how well. These are actually 3 chiller units and 3 boilers, and you can see the temperatures and make sure everything's functioning properly. Next slide. Getting into some rooftop units and some VAV boxes. Again, this just kind of shows you all the detail we can get for each of those units so we can know what's going on. Next slide. Schedules. One of our key things that we do is set schedules for the building. You'll see on here that, during the week, it's mostly the air conditioning's on to 5 to 6. I believe this is probably for a high school. This is Battery Creek High School, which goes a little later in the day. And the reason we have to, and then on the weekends, it's off unless people come into the building or they've let us know of some event. The reason why this is so important is because, of course, when you're cooling a building, when you're bringing fresh air into a building, that costs money. So if the building's not being used, we don't want to spend a lot of money bringing cool, fresh air or cooling the building. So these schedules allow us to do that. Everyone should know in the district that if you have a classroom and the thermostat on the wall, you can press a button and let that unit run 30 minutes if you happen to come in on the weekends or whatever without turning on the entire building. So that's another way that we keep our energy costs down. Next slide, Robin. If we'll go on to how we rank. In 2023, one of our achievements, we received a Energy Reduction Milestone Achievement Award for a reduction of greater than 20% in a single year. That's coming out of COVID, so that was in 2023 that we had a reduction greater than 20%. Next slide shows where we are today, which shows in FY22 we were down at 36.76 compared to the average school districts at 34, puts us a little higher, but one thing I do want to make you aware of is that this just tells you about energy use. It doesn't really get into the specifics of indoor air quality, so especially in older districts and older buildings, they may not be holding as strict a standard to indoor air quality as we are. So don't be concerned necessarily if you see that our energy use is a little higher than others, because my next question would be, how much fresh air are they bringing into their buildings? And a lot of the older buildings don't allow for that. So we've upgraded most of ours, and we maintain the fresh air settings at ours because we feel that that's important for our students. Next slide, just something here, it goes over the energy use intensity. As you see, we did have an uptick in the last year. And then the slide on the left talks about, you see that there's been an increase in square footage, and our energy use as far as change in use has kind of fluctuated over the last few years. Last slide, before I'll take any questions, just shows a monthly use of energy, and then you've got 4 years for each month, so you can see how there are some consistencies in the months where energy goes up, and you can compare each month to previous years and how we've done.
So with that, I'll take any questions you have. We had a more in-depth conversation. That's a really quick run-through of the energy report, but if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Mr. Smith?
In terms of energy quality control of the air conditioner, how regularly do we do that?
We look at this every day. As far as changing settings or something of that, it's usually an event that comes along that has us change settings. When summer comes, we put a lot of our buildings into unoccupied mode if the classrooms aren't being used. If there's a holiday coming up, we may put our buildings in unoccupied due to the holiday. So does that answer your question?
Not really. I'm talking about, in particularly, in terms of air quality control, in terms of how regularly do we do those checks in reference into this report?
So as far as air quality control, that function is kind of on autopilot. Basically, we can set the fresh air settings and then we leave them. We do check the filters. Those are checked about every 4 months as far as changed out for filters for most of our buildings. The recommendation is usually every 6 months. We do it on a 4-month cycle, changing out filters. But as far as unless there's a complaint, we're not really going to be looking at or changing the system. As far as indoor air quality goes, we have a process. If there's a concern, that people can file an indoor air quality request, and with that, we come out and check the indoor air quality, see if we need to make any changes or if anything needs to be done to address that concern.
No one else? I have a couple more questions than no one else.
Would anybody else like to ask a question? Mr. Campbell?
You said that you change the filters every, 6 months?
About every 4 months.
Every 4 months?
Yes, sir.
Why every 4 months?
Well, sometimes they don't need it more than that, and that's just a good time period that we found. The recommended is every 6 months for these commercial air conditioning units based on the size of the filter, so we're just getting a little ahead of that and just providing a little more, getting ahead of making sure the filter is not dirty by the time we change it.
Do you think in the future maybe you're going to stop putting units on top of the building, in the roof?
We're using rooftop units. Mr. Campbell, that's good. If I had my way, I wouldn't put any on the roof. I prefer the mezzanine, but sometimes, it's just more affordable and works out better that way. You can't always put a sloped roof on a building, but I can promise you, if every chance I get, I try to put them in a mezzanine. I prefer not to put them on the rooftop. Unfortunately, that's a much more affordable way to do it, but where we can, we stay away from that.
Would anybody else like to speak that has not spoken? All right, Mr. Smith?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see. Okay.
Also, into comparison, I noticed that you were talking about in terms of teachers turning on the air conditioner in terms of there's a button that they can push when they're in the building on the weekends. And I've been to a couple of events, and I noticed that what we were told in the room is that basically the only way they could have air conditioner on if they called district and it was told, and they would have it on in certain parts of the building. So what's that mechanism for in terms of the building? You've told us the process of the classroom and specifically, but what's that process like for the actual building?
Yes, that's a good point. Our larger spaces don't have the button like you said. Like if you're in a cafeteria or a gym, there's no button you can push to turn those on. So basically, if you have an outside event, there's a whole process for that, of course, of leasing our facilities. And with that event will get an email is sent to our energy manager and tells them there's an event going on and that space needs to be left on. Outside of that, it's for the school would need to let either maintenance or put in a work order, let somebody know it's going to be used after hours. Example, this room right here, obviously the air is running right now, so we were informed that this room needed to run after hours, and so that's how it happens. They just need to put in a work order. There is actually there is a sheet they can fill out and send in. I can't remember what we call it, whether it's indoor air request or something of that, HVAC request sheet, if they need it after hours.
And my question would be to that is, why haven't we put that same button in those bigger spaces? Because, for instance, let's say that there's an event or there's an emergency event that needs to happen at a school, or we have to move from one school to another, and they can't get in contact with the district, then the timing of that air conditioning has to be on a certain time, especially a large facility like a gymnasium or something to actually cool the room. So is there a reason why we have not putting that same function in the actual building?
Quite honestly, I've not thought of that. There is some concern with just the size of those and turning them on, people turning them on if they're not needed. There are multiple people in the district that can turn a system on, so you can call me if you don't know, J.D. Atkinson, our energy manager, or any of the managers with maintenance. So, I mean, we do get a lot of last-minute calls that they forgot to let us know that they needed the air on, and we've usually been able to accommodate that. So, a big system like that, I'll look into that and see if there is a possibility of putting a button on those. But no, none of our large spaces have that function.
Okay. And my last question for actually some of this as well is in terms of the air conditioning in the bill, and I was just wondering that same thing, because I noticed in certain buildings, like you said, we talked about it a little bit during operations, and a lot of people have asked me when they have rolled by certain buildings at night and the building has been lit up, and do we have certain buildings where that function is on, and certain buildings that are newer or older that function is not for the public? Can we kind of get an understanding of what that looked like? Because that, I'm sure, having a large cafeteria in some different areas light up at night and no one is in it, that would bring concerns of moisture, different things, of not running air conditioning when no one is in there, versus having lights on and no one else is in there. Those two things kind of run congruent to each other. So that was just questions I've been asked. So if you could just kind of elaborate on those, and I'm done.
So as far as lights go, we have occupancy sensors on pretty much almost every building in the district, and that means that if there's not motion in the area, the lights will go off. So if there are lights on in the building, that means somebody is in there moving around to keep the lights on. The two exceptions to that I'm aware of is because they have lighting control packages that are not occupancy sensors, they're more on timers, are Red Cedar and Beaufort L. They both have lighting packages that are electronically controlled, that are a little different than the occupancy sensors. Are much simpler. Just basically, if there's movement, they come on. Those lighting packages at Beaufort L and Red Cedar have timing and programming involved in them. So those are the only schools I'm aware of that lights could come on without movement triggering them. And remember, custodians are in the building at night, so they could be walking around and you may not see them, but they may be in there. That usually takes once they come on, it's about 15 minutes before they go off.
Thank you.
Mr. Dallas?
If there are no more questions, I just had a couple of points I wanted to make at the appropriate time, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay. One of the things I've been very impressed is the continuity that the operations group has been pursuing under prior leaders and currently as well. One of the things we're looking at is trying to be forward-looking and looking at strategically where there are opportunities that we can reduce the energy costs. In a large operation, energy normally is a very significant cost. So some of the discussions that have been held is looking at solar panels on top of buildings. Now, retrofitting is very problematic. Mr. Otting has helped me understand that. However, it appears, and further review has to be conducted, that if you do it from the outset while you're building that building, it may be a lot sturdier, and you may, as he alluded to, the solar panel field outside of the DESC, which is making that building basically cost us nothing. Maybe opportunities, we could reduce the energy costs in locations where that can be accomplished. Not saying it can happen, but it's worth us taking a look, and so that's the way I really want to applaud the group. The other thing is phone service at some of our high schools. When I went to, what's it called, Skisby? South Carolina School Board Association, and I went to Whale Branch High School. There's no service there. And I know that has been pursued before, so kudos to everybody who's pursued it before. But one of the changes is that the federal government is awarding billions of dollars to basically for the broadband expansion. I know phone service is different, but the state of South Carolina has a gentleman named Jim Streisinger who is heading up the effort to improve connectivity, because that can help our kids have access they might not have now, and communities have access. So that's one of the things we've talked about. The other one, and Mr. Otting, correct me if I'm wrong, sir, we still looking at possibly coming forward with the HVAC for November?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're looking at a strategic study in terms of HVAC, so we don't have a repeat of the outages that occurred in the summer of 2024. And so with that, the conclusion of the operations report, and thank you all.
Thank you. Our next committee report is policy, and we have Chair Earl Campbell reporting.
Thank you. We had a policy committee meeting on the 2nd of October, and we discussed two items. One, public comment, and the other about use of our facilities. And the recommendation coming from the committee is that to have electronic public comments open 24 hours from 5:30 p.m. and in-person public comments not received after public comment period begins. And once the public comment, if you're in person, after that started, you cannot request to be heard. The other thing, the use of our facilities, that has been a sticky issue. Because sometimes folks want to use it for different things, and sometimes the principals don't always agree. So we had two from two districts, Rock Hill and York County, but I asked Mrs. Cushenberry to check with other districts and see what policy they have, and once they come in, once those policies come in, we'll have another policy committee meeting. Okay? That's it.
So do you want to bring forward maybe we should split it into two parts of your recommended motion?
I recommended motion to have public comments open 24 hours from 5:30 p.m. And then the second one will be 5:30 p.m. in person comments not received after public comment begins.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yeah, can I just clarify?
Same here. Why doesn't somebody second it, and then I just have a question too to clarify it?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So my question is, so it looks like the electronic public comments are open, it says, for 24 hours, so it's from 5:30 the prior day
Right.
to 5:30 the day of the meeting?
Right.
Okay. Now, the in-person public comments, when do those open?
That would be from 5:30 also.
The day before, or, no, because nobody's going to be in person, or just 5:30 of the day of the meeting?
The day of the meeting.
Okay, and then they close to the first person starts speaking?
Right.
Okay. Makes good sense to me. All right, everybody understand that? Okay. Any further comments or, okay, Mr. Smith?
I have concerns because we've already, as a board, at one point, we've already had this conversation, and we didn't think that it was feasible to cut the community off in terms of, just like tonight, we have a parent who doesn't get off until perhaps 7 o'clock. So that parent could miss the opportunity because we're over here on this side of town, on this side of the broad, and we say as a board that we in advance that we give the north side, and I mean that we give the north and the south, we give them both opportunities to be able to come to board meetings and to be able to speak. And so they can attend them. So you mean to tell me that we want them to attend but not speak? Because that's the message that I get when a parent is coming. A parent could have the opportunity tonight because they're working late at Harris Teeter, or they're working late at Sam's, and they get off at 7, and we have another public comment at 9 o'clock. So we want to say that if they don't make they're not here by 6:05, or if we don't have any comment that night, that they can't, once they come in and the public comments cause it that they can't sign up. I think that's a disservice to the community. And that's what we talked about the first time when we discussed this, that public comments are for the public, and we have 2 different slots in terms of time. We do that at 6 o'clock, and I believe we do that at 9 o'clock. And so if they have not done it, everyone is not technology savvy. That's the first thing. And I have constituents who are not technology savvy, and I have grandparents who don't understand how to get those things in technology wise. And so if God forbid they've driven over here, I know how our board is. Rules are rules. So therefore, we would not give them the opportunity. And I think that's wrong, and that's a disservice that we do to the community. So for that, because we spoke about it and we voted on this and we talked about it prior, I cannot support that, because God forbid one of those parents come in, then we're going to say, oh, tonight, just because that parent came in, she want to speak, or she might have a topic that, because she didn't come in during public comments, that she can't speak. That's absolutely wrong, because we're service of the people. We service the community.
Would you like to respond, Mr. Kimball?
For me, if a parent has a concern, they can go to their board member. That's simple as that. And many folks don't want to come to board meetings. They will call their board member. I know mine called me since I've been on this board. And if there's an issue that needs to be dealt with, I will contact the superintendent. And so if they want to be heard, that's what you as a board member, that's what one of your responsibilities. You know, and have meetings in your community and discuss issues that need to be discussed. Thank you.
I interpret it totally differently from you, Mr. Smith, in that this is expanding the opportunity to speak, not constricting it, because we're now going to have the online form open for the 24 hours prior to a meeting, which we do not have now. And the persons that are in person, they have the opportunity to speak twice during the meeting. The first time, yes, is limited to the agenda, but the second time, we would take any topic. So I look at it as an expansion, not a constriction. So different point of view. Okay, Ms. Hay?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just also going to state that to keep in mind that parents still have the opportunity, or any constituent, to email us at any time. And as we all board members know, parents do use that opportunity to speak with us. Because the meeting time sometimes doesn't work for them, they will email us all or separately to let their wishes or concerns be known. So just wanted to go on the record stating that that's always an option as well. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
I've heard what my colleagues have said, but unfortunately, I still do believe that, once again, in terms of, once again, if someone comes in person and they get here right now under what they're asking for us to vote on tonight, they get here and they would normally have the right to fill out a comment card to comment. At our next session, they would not be allowed, because if it ends after the last person, or after we've closed public comments for the first section, there's nothing in there that says that we will allow them to comment on the next set, at the 9 o'clock hour, because if they hadn't done it electronically, then they can't do it. And to me, that's kind of discriminatory, because once again, if someone's mother or father is not electronically savvy or does not understand the level of technology, then they will not allow that to happen. And you look at South Carolina High School League, which at one point in time they weren't accepting money. They were not accepting cash. They were only doing credit card payments. You had to go online and buy your tickets online. But what they determined was, no, we need to offer people in person. So we're saying the second time in person, we're cutting that off. And I'll leave that there. Thank you.
I'm once again interpreting it totally differently. So what this means, the motion on the table, is that if you are in person, you turn in a card that's like this, and you can turn the card in for the first public comments right until the first person starts speaking. And don't forget, the second public comments is open for all topics. Doesn't even have to be an agenda topic. And the same thing, if you turn the card in at, let's say, 8:15, and the first commenter is not till 8:16, that's fine. So I think you're thinking that it cuts off at 5:30, and no, that's not the motion on the table.
But that's not what's in the motion either. The motion does not state that either. So, I mean, the motion states clearly from 5:30 p.m. it says 24-hour periods. So that 24-hour period means that once the meeting starts at 5:30 p.m., then that's cut off. It doesn't state that.
That's electronic, sir. Electronic.
Okay. So where does it state that? Where's the walk-in policy at?
Well, that's why when the motion was made and seconded, that's why I wanted to make it clear what exactly the motion made, the intent of the motion, and that was the clarification for the in-person cards. Because it doesn't say it right there.
Yeah. Oh, may I?
Yes.
So that the motion is clear, Mr. Campbell and Madam Chair and others, would you want to specify what you just said?
Yes.
So that it is very clear in the motion that the electronics cut off, so that there's time for our staff to do what they need to do.
Right.
But the second period is still there.
It's still there, right.
Would you
Is
want to?
open, maybe you should just add it, and you could say, and the in-person public comments are open until that period commences.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay. Other
Who
question?
seconded it? You did, right?
Yeah,
Are you
okay.
okay with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
All right, I
Okay.
think we're ready to vote.
Okay.
All right, so we have, so the second part of your motion, and the in-person public comments, what did I just say?
We'll stay the same.
It says it's not, comments not received after the public comment period begins.
Right, so the person who's the commenter in person can submit their card right up until the first person is speaking for whether it's the first session or the second session.
Right. Okay.
And
That's clarification.
Go ahead.
one of the intents was to actually expand the time.
Right.
That our residents could actually get in and get their comments captured.
Right.
So that there wasn't that compression. So, thank you, ma'am.
All right, so all in favor of the clarification for the motion, please say, if you're in favor, please say aye. Aye. And online?
Aye.
Any nays? And any abstentions? All right, did you vote?
Yeah, after we extended it, we put that language in there. I did vote to support. I have no problem with getting people
Thank
more
you.
time.
All right, so the motion carries unanimously. All right, does that conclude your report?
Yes, it is. That's it.
Mr. Campbell? All right, thank you very much. Next on our agenda, we have the superintendent's report.
And thank you, Dr. Watts. The superintendent's report today Dr. Straddle is going to be covering two topics. One, the state released today their embargo data on school accountability and their report card ratings for each school. And so we're going to go through that with you. And then she's going to, when that's concluded, she'll touch base on the MSAP grant announcement and notification. That is also good news. So, Dr. Stratos?
Dr. Rodriguez, thank you very much. Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. Tonight's accountability presentation focuses upon the South Carolina report card rating results for Beaufort County School District schools for the academic 2023-2024 school year. Joining me is our Director of Accountability, Nicholas Flowers. But I first want to start the presentation by recognizing our educators, administrators, students, and their families for their continued work. Thank you. And you are very much appreciated for the work that you've conducted the past year and continue. So let me start with some of the good news, and then we'll have bring forward some of what we know where we need to address. 10 schools moved up 1 or 2 levels. Joseph S. Shanklin and Whale Branch Elementary schools both moved up 2 accountability levels, from unsatisfactory to good. This is also the first time since 2018 Beaufort County School District does not have any unsatisfactory school ratings. I want to share we have our highest graduation rate reported from state data, which is at 88.6. And as I turn to these next 2 items, and I'll go through the presentation, I want us to recognize that English language arts is our highest since 2016. Last year I shared with you that we had our highest ever. Well, we beat last year. We're at 55.6% efficiency. I want to recognize that math, although we are above the state, we still haven't gotten to the point of pre-pandemic performance. So with that, I want to walk us through the presentation. You do have a hard copy in front of you. Our first slide does walk you through the SC rating scale definitions. These definitions are aligned to the profile of a South Carolina graduate. I know you all have cheated ahead and went ahead in your handouts, but I'm going to walk you through this. So we have excellent, good, average, below average, and unsatisfactory. Now, if you go to slide number 2, you will see in each one of these respective columns, we have excellent, good, average, below average, and the last column, unsatisfactory, has no schools populated in that area. I want you to recognize under excellent, if I can count, Bluffton High School, 3 years in a row. May River High School is joining as a school of excellence. I want to bring forward that if you see the green box surrounding Pritchardville and May River High, if you look down at the key, they went up 1 level from last year. If we look under the good ratings, you note that Beaufort Middle has moved up a level to good. Hilton Head School of Creative Arts has moved up the level to good. I also want us to recognize that Bluffton Elementary, which was rated last year as excellent, did slide to good, as well as Red Cedar. If you look at our ratings in average, if I can take a moment to bring your eyes to the name of Shanklin and Whale Branch Elementary, that's why they have double boxes around them. They came up 2 levels. Robert Small's Leadership Academy at the elementary came up a level. Beaufort Elementary did slide down, we recognize that. And below average are schools that are identified are Ladies Island, Battery Creek High School, and Port Royal Elementary. Our next slide helps you understand what are the indicators and the ranges of points in order to fall into these report card categories. If you look at the area where it says indicators, I want to bring to your attention where it says preparing for success, there's an asterisk. Preparing for success for the elementary and middle school was not calculated this past year, as the state chose for science not to be counted towards report cards. But you'll see it in high school, it is part of the biology, U.S. history, and Constitution EOCs. I want you to also note the double asterisk next to multilingual. That is a subgroup, and in order to be identified with a subgroup, a school must have 20 or more students within the school. In this case, we refer to multilingual students. If we look at academic achievement on our next slide, for elementary and middle school, Beaufort County School District has outperformed the state in the categories of English language arts as well as in math. If we look at academic achievement for high school, which includes our end-of-course exam of Algebra 1, English 2, and I do want to bring note that it also includes our alternate assessments for students with significant cognitive disabilities, and that is as well for grades 3 through 8. We have outperformed the state in algebra and in English too. Now, these metrics are for students earning a C or higher. I just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. Preparing for success. As I shared with you earlier, science was not a metric that was included on the report cards for grades 3 through 8. But at the high school preparing for success, it includes biology, U.S. history and Constitution, both of them are end-of-course exams. And again, the South Carolina alternate assessment for students with cognitive disabilities. Again, our district is outperforming the state. And as I shared with you earlier, this is for students earning grades of a C or higher. And this is where it gets a little creative from the state's perspective, and I want to share that with you. We are very familiar with a value-added model, and what I mean by that, Mary sat for the SC Ready as a third grader, then she sits as a fourth grader. What was my increase from third grade to fourth grade? We're familiar with that model, right, the value-added model. The state has put in 2 additional metrics. I want us to think about level 1, 2, 3, 4. If Mary was a 1 last year and grew a half step to a 0.5, well, that actually falls within that 50th percentile or the 50th growth that they now refer to as the MAT. And let's stay with this example again. Mary was a 1 last year in English language arts, but now grew up to a 2.3, which technically, if you think about it, it is almost 8 steps. Mary now grew to the 80th percentile. So that student for a school can give the points of that 50th growth and that 80th. It's a creative scoring area. I will not get into the mathematics of it. As I shared with you once before, the mathematical formula is a little beyond myself. But I have to say it's a great opportunity if you look at the levels and you look at scale scores, which are sub-levels. It's a very smart way of getting additional growth for accountability purposes. The state's goal is that our students, by the time they're an 8th grader, by 2030, that we have stretched our students to that 80th mark. So it gives us a road map on how to move our students and to monitor. If we go to our next slide, which is for multilingual students. I would share that this is an area that we know that we have some growth to do as a system. And we have discussed with you the many diversity of language and the needs of our multilingual students in the past. We're statistically just a 0.9 below the state on multilingual students. And I recognize that we will continue to push for growth for our ML populations. If we can go to graduation rate, there you go. Thank you, Mrs. Cushenberry. We need to celebrate the growth. On the state's records, this is the highest for Beaufort County School District that we've had. Hence, I want to celebrate our students and our parents and our educators and administrators who have helped us for our students for graduation. Our next slide takes you to college and career readiness. This is really where the work has grown significantly. It's the highest ever for our system. It's significant, 82.8% of our graduates. These are our career, technical education classes where our students have been completers or have been very successful with regard to their industry certifications. Building on that question, what do we do for what do you do for the next day after you graduate? Our next slide gives you an idea of what are the criteria or the metrics used for college readiness as well as career readiness. You as a board have shared we need to compare ourselves outside of our norm, and we are starting that practice to shift the nomenclature of BCSD. Today, actually for the past 2 days, we've conducted PSAT training, starting with our students at a much younger age. We want the culture to be, how am I doing on my SAT, ACT, and we're looking at building that from our middle schoolers up. That is our norm that we want to have for Beaufort County School District. And if you look at the career readiness, you are very familiar with this. Karen Gilbert, who does a phenomenal job with Ralph Attai, have done some exceptional presentations for you. High school student success indicator. This is kind of new for many of you. What this means is, where were our ninth graders at the end of the academic school year? Have they earned 6 credits? Of those 6, 1 must be math, 1 must be English. So it's a new adage to our accountability system for the state. We outperformed the state. School climate, as I shared with you in the opening, we recognize that we have areas of success. We also recognize that we have areas that we want to improve upon. This is one. We would like to exceed the state within this metric. This survey is conducted annually. I will share that here at Beaufort County School District, the school climate survey is administered with the same scrutiny that we do with standardized tests. And I think that's important for us to recognize. So, in summary, if I could draw your attention to the table. 2024, we have 6 schools who are excellent. 2023, we have 6 schools who are excellent. We recognize that 2 slid out of that category, 2 slid up. 2024, we have 12 schools with good rating. 2023, we had 9. We recognize the average from 13, from 24 to 20, and in 2023, we had 6. That's a 3 difference from year to year, but you can see that. Below average in 2024, I identified for you our schools. There are 3. 2023, we had 1. In 2023, we also had 2 schools who were identified as unsatisfactory. I want to celebrate the successes, and many of you have read the news release that was put up by Dr. Bruder today. and the comments put forward from Nikki Lucas, one of our local elementary schools right here, who has grown significantly, as well as Joseph S. Shanklin, Principal Rivera. So with that, this brings my closure to this component of my presentation. And Madam Chair?
Any questions or comments? Mr. Ney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back on the college and career readiness indicator, if I could just get a little clarification. Is it saying that of the students that are in a college or career-ready program, 82% are qualified? Or is it saying out of our entire graduating class, 82% are college or career-ready?
College or career-ready.
Of the entire graduating class?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. And I've said this ever since I've been on the board, that the district have put program in places so students can achieve. But parents has to do a better job. And a lot of folks don't like to hear that, you know. But if the parents not get involved with their students' education, then nothing's going to happen. Thank you.
Ms. Gordon?
I just have a comment as well. I really enjoyed this presentation, and I thank you and your committee for putting it together in terms that we can understand what the ratings mean, what it means to our schools, our principals. I know when they get these reports, they're dreading it. But this is a good look, I think. And kudos to this administration for the programs that you do put together. And those parents who are listening, Mr. Campbell is right. We really need your involvement, but we need the students to do the work. And right now, it looks like the students are doing the work. So thank you. Thank you again, Dr. Stratus, for this report and this update.
Colonel Guyer?
Any progress? When Dr. Rodriguez came here, he told us that progress depends on culture, then systems, and then instruction. Since he's been here, he has changed the culture of the staff and faculty of the Beaufort County School District. He's put in systems to monitor progress, and he's put emphasis on instructions with internal reviews and professional learning communities. The results of that are an indicator of the progress that's made. It's not fast. It's not. It's, I would say, marginal. Its trend is up. Mr. Campbell makes the point on parents, and I would like to expand on that to say community, because sometimes parents just can't help because of their employment issues, other issues that's in the home. We've got to reach out to the extended family of the student. One of the things I've seen, SIC participation, School Improvement Council participation, is we only invite parents, we don't get that many people. But we expend that invitation to grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, we get a lot more participation. We get a lot of participation when we have programs in the schools, whether they be athletic programs, drama programs, singing programs. That's when you see lots of folks show up, and that's when you see the extended family. But we also need the help by the faith-based community, the churches, and we've gotten that and we've gotten great results in after-school programs fostered by those communities. We've also gotten good results from community-led organizations, like the Extra Mile Club, like the Legion of Extraordinary Gentlemen that has been started up in Robert Smalls. These are community volunteer that have come in to provide mentorship, to provide guidance and support, and we lost a lot of that volunteer work during COVID. And we're gradually building those volunteers back up again, but we've got more to do. I was really happy to hear the briefing I received today from Constance Bruder on the expansion of the public affairs, public relations, the community outreach, because that's how we're going to get to your long-term goal of 75, 75, 92, right? That's just your culture, systems, and instruction will get us there eventually, but I hope eventually is sooner than later. And if we're going to get sooner, we got to do like Mr. Campbell says, we got to get the parents more involved, and we got to get the community more involved. They will do it if we have programs to show them. They will come out. And we're on the right step. And I think as long as we continue to do that, we can start to make more than marginal increases. We can make significant, substantial year-to-year increases in academic achievement. Thank you.
Mr. Dallas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too agree that birth to 5 is really critically important. And I've been on the board less than 2 years, and it was really an eye-opener for me to learn how important the family is. And I heard one of the people in this room say that the first classroom kids ever go into is within their home. I think too few Americans know that. And I also think there are very few parents who, if they know how important the time they spend with their kids is in that kid's development, I think they'd be a lot more motivated. So in terms of the programs that are being spoken about, I think one, and I know it's already in progress and being worked on, but real intense effort to use all those institutions Colonel Geyer and Mr. Campbell and others have spoken about to help inform the parents. We know you want your kid to excel. Here's how important your role is, with some specifics of how they do that. So I'm very positive about it. I mean, I think it's progress, more to be made. The other thing is, maybe there can be consideration of identifying, not only comparing against the state, but also how we're doing against the state, but also a collection of aspirational school districts that we can say, hey, this is aspirational, but here's how we get there. And so, but well done and keep at it. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. May?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was remiss. First of all, I want to say, Mr. Geyer, all it takes is a spark to start a fire. That's all it takes. And I think that's what we're trying to do here, and I hope that those fires start all over. But I was remiss. Shankly Elementary is one of the schools I represent, and I have to say, when I first met with Principal Rivera, the weight of the unsatisfactory moniker that they had on their school was heavy, almost palatable in the school, but she owned it, and her team owned it, and they put their heads down, they got to work, and they didn't go up one, they went up two categories, and I couldn't be more proud of her and her team. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I add an item?
Sure.
On Friday, we have an ecumenical luncheon. I know many of you board members have received an invitation. Please try to join us at the district office. We have a very full agenda, and I do have to say thank you for making note of Ms. Rivera. I really do. She worked unbelievably hard. On our agenda will be our superintendent, surprise, doing a conduct presentation on the 75, 75, 92, but also about attendance, the significance, and showing you the impact. Gifted and talented information to be shared. The ELA standards to share so that we can get voice out in the community to bring more attention to what needs to happen at home. So I just want to, if you're available. So thank you.
Mr. Smith?
I've listened to a lot of what my colleagues have said. They've said a lot, and it seems like something that they have stood out about community involvement in the processes and of how we got where we got, and resources. And during COVID, we've had a lot of resources moving forward that won't be available to us. That's very, very important to understand. So, with saying that, I think that even that with this being our first look at this, and we've not really had a long time to digest this information and where we go from here, and in terms of also understanding it and digest this, I think that this information and this presentation, who, where, what, and why, and how, I believe that we have an academic committee. I believe that this committee should go to the academic committee just to understand in terms of not just resources, and we've said a lot, and we said what we want to happen, and how that could possibly happen in terms of what it will look like, and how they are getting the community together and resources, what that looked like. I think that presentation would be kind of good it would be good in the academic committee, because this is kind of really, to me, this is kind of a snapshot, because when you look at every single number, and we have the sheet here that tells you where the schools came from, but I think, me personally, I've not had enough time to digest this. This has probably been out, less than 24 hours?
I think it was 11:45 this morning.
Okay, so yeah, less than 24 hours. And I appreciate the diligence that our staff have done to get this together for us. But I just think that it's very imperative for us to figure out to put our not just our actions, but our money and our actions where our mouth is, and to more understand this information that we've been given. So I think that it needs to go to the academic committee to do further and understand it, because as one of my colleagues said here earlier, and I look at some of these schools that are now average, they've had very key after-school programs that I'm sure it had an impact in changing these scores with these students. And so now, some of them may have it, some of them may not, but also what other things in terms of moving forward, what mechanism have the district has put in. I think that we kind of owe to have that conversation. So with that being said, I just think that further conversation to understand and really process this information, not just tonight, I think it should go to academic committee. So at this time, I would just move that we send this presentation and accept it to have a further conversation in the academic committee. Or if no one have any objections to that. Thank you.
So continuing on maybe kind of the same topics, I know Dr. Rodriguez, you'll take these school ratings and see what has shifted some of these schools, the 2 levels up, 2 levels down, whatever it may be. I'm sure you're going to, say, is it a particular subject area, the teaching, a textbook? I mean, obviously, there's so many things that play a role. Attendance, as we've already touched upon. But obviously, breaking down where the school ratings are and why several of them shifted significantly is probably the way to look at things, to see if we can't shift upwards more of our schools.
Well, I think what you see in these results is a continuation of what we saw last year. That is, the bottom shifting up, right? And you see really sustaining numbers at the top end, okay? And in terms of ratings, okay? In terms of ratings. And so I think, you know, that is a testament to probably some of the work that's been done in conjunction between individual school sites and some of the district level support that has gone in. For example, an implementation of monitoring meetings every Friday at specific school sites that were on the lower end of that, right? And so those things I think generally help in pushing forward, but what you want to do is be able to sustain that push, right? So you don't see schools that push forward and then drop off, right? And that's a hard lift, all right? I know sometimes people like to talk about it as it's easy, just move it, you move them once, just keep moving it. Trust me, I have a lifetime's work in this, okay? It is not easy work, and it is grit and hard work and determination that is happening with our people on the ground. You know, a couple things just to draw attention, because these are things we're going to zero in on. So we are continuing with those monitoring type meetings that we've had. We're shifting a little bit in terms of some schools, but not a lot, because we don't want to remove that support that is there in those places just yet. We want to just keep that push till we're confident and feel good about sustainability of that progress, right? And that's not an easy lift. Sometimes, like I said, people like to talk about it as it should have just been done yesterday. I don't understand this, and it's hard work. It's a hard push. Additionally, I think what's important to note is that I want to call out. I think Dr. Straddles mentioned the progress made in language arts, a growth of another percentage point overall as a district, which means, again, it's the highest at the district level. Math continues to be a challenge. I've said that when we were impacted in the pandemic. I continue to say it when I'm out at public meetings. I say it. We don't duck it. We talk about it, okay? And we work at it. And what I want to tell you is that although we're seeing progress, okay, progress is not, hasn't gotten us just yet back to pre-pandemic levels, okay? That is nationwide, folks. That's not a Beaufort County phenomenon. That is nationwide. We can ignore a pandemic or not ignore a pandemic. It hit. It happened. Communities made choices about whether my child is face-to-face or whether it's not they're not face-to-face, right? All of those factors that were available have an impact. And we see that. And we work at academic recovery. And there's no doubt Secretary Cardona, the Department of Education, said the impact in mathematics is decades. It's not slight, it's decades. So the lift is harder in mathematics, without a doubt. While we see progress, and you see progress in SC Ready scores, and you see some progress in the algebra scores, about 3 percentage points, that's the hard lift. And it's still a hard lift, and that's where we're zeroing in. As you know, this year, I identified Mona Lisa Dixon to focus in and lead our efforts around mathematics, specifically targeting that work. So I know Dr. Dixon, and Dr. Dixon, builds her team, creates a structure around that work, and drives hard to the hoop. And I'll say hard to the hoop because she's an ex-basketball coach, all right? So that is what I think one of the initiatives that are going to be helpful in that endeavor. But make no mistake about it, math is a challenge. It's a challenge statewide. I want to look and see some specific districts that may have made large growth, and then I want to go see what they've done, in terms of mathematics. And it doesn't matter whether it's a South Carolina school district or it's another state school district. I'm going to try to find others' mathematics results and see what else, and take a team with me to see, because I don't mind borrowing when it's good, Another thing I want to call out is we talk about college and career ready, and the college or career ready score being the highest that the district has hit. I want to see a heavier push on the college ready component. Hence, Dr. Stratos mentioned that the last 2 days we have had some seminar sessions for 8th grade students on PSAT. That should do a few things. One, that should help them understand what those assessments are about, what's being measured in those assessments, what that's compared to, scholarship opportunities as a result of PSAT, and then push into the SAT realm and ACT realm around the college readiness piece. And that's an area I think we need a heavy push in. Our career ready has really done some outstanding work. And so that's the beneficiary in the college or the career ready. But I do think I want to see a stronger push on both individual college ready or individual career ready. I think that's important to note. And then I think that the main thing I take away from this for our system is there has been progress lifting the bottom up. Some particular schools have moved significantly, jumping 2 levels. We want to keep pushing. We want to keep pushing because we're able to do that and still serve high-end level programs, and that's really important, and we're seeing that. Okay, so that push has to continue, and I think the last thing I'm going to say bleeds into the next conversation about MSAP in a second here that Dr. Stratos can unveil the efforts of their hard work. But Mr. Smith, you mentioned ESSER, and you mentioned that ESSER dollars are done, right? And so that's a really good point. That was one of those things that was of concern to us because one of the key factors that we were able to implement was the extended learning sites around the county. And we know that has had a positive impact, and we were able to use ESSER dollars for that work. And those dollars are gone. But I'm happy to tell you that Dr. Stratos and her team have gone after and received a grant from the Low Country Coalition Foundation, right? And that grant is going to sustain our extended learning sites for several years to come. So that's really, those initiatives that initiative in particular, that was paying dividends, we have the opportunity to continue because the community partner has looked at it and felt that it was worthy enough to continue those efforts and willing to step up and fund that for those programs. And so, Dr. Stratos, I'm going to ask you, if there aren't any more questions on this, I'm going to shift us to the next item, which is the MSAP announcement.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the learnings I've experienced in my life, a lot of kids are told they cannot do math. And it starts in the home. And I think, just to share an anecdotal experience, some of the best mathematicians I've ever met went to 1st through 8th grade under a tree. They didn't even have a school building. And they come into a big petroleum company, and they're competitive with the best that Europe, Asia, U.S. schools can produce in terms of their mathematical abilities. But math is accretive. If you don't pay attention and first get into that course, it builds, it's like the foundation of a building. And as we're talking to the community, I think that's a key point to help people so that they understand you can learn it and do it.
Yep.
Just have to be disciplined.
It is, Mr. Dallas, and I think that's probably why we see that greatest effect from the pandemic on mathematics, because those early foundations are essential, and everything builds upon itself in mathematics. And so, yep.
Also, I would just definitely, I was looking at the excellent scores. In terms of looking at the scores a little bit today, earlier, I would definitely like to highlight Ms. Denise Donica for and being her remiss for having an excellent school for the last 3 years. That's major, and there's something consistency that she did right here in this district. What, as my grandma would say, what seasoning she would put in her soup. I think it would be very important that we would kind of, get with her on that as well. And I have to be careful because I'd have to give kudos out to May River, because May River has, they've got an excellence too, and this is their first time, I believe, since 2019 for them to become excellent as well. So definitely, I don't want to get into personally about giving shout outs, but into administrators that have left us and they've received great scores, kudos to them, but definitely to Ms. Denise Donica for all her hard work and to have it 3 years, that we talk about a legacy. That's definitely a legacy to leave behind, and if she's listening, we definitely appreciate your hard work, and please send us the seasoning to your sauce so that we can continue to use that, because you have some big shoes to fill. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, we're going to work at bringing that seasoning back in some format as soon as she's finished with retirement thoughts. But I think one of the key things that Ms. Donica did was what we'll call halftime adjustments, right? You get halfway through the year, and then those halftime adjustments at school levels make a difference and make an impact, and so that's one of those key things, and that's one of the things I'd like to bring her back to share more of, is how she thought about those halftime adjustments, right, for her principals. I think the other thing that's of note is that wasn't a one-year thing for her. I don't mean 3 years of excellence. It took her a while to get that school and build things up so that it was able to perform and achieve at that level. It was something that took a while, And so, and then in addition, some of the strategies that she used in terms of master board and the courses and course progression for students are no longer recognized or allowed by the state, even though they work. Right. So that's just one of those things. To your point, though, there are some great highlights of some great work that's been done. So I agree.
And I do know her and Mr. Webb did keep it means they were very interested just to watch the two go back and forth. So I believe that the competition is a little help too. I'd give Ms. Cruz because they would have some, they would shoot the basketball at each other across the room at times. So apparently he took his initiative pretty serious as well. Yes, I have to give him kudos as well, but yeah. Good healthy competition.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez and Madam Chair. Just to be able to note, Mr. Smith, so the grant for we receive for extended learning is $2.3 million. And we partnered also with Boys and Girls Club to help subsidize part of our salary cost. So we are making strides for extended learning. But to bring to your attention as well, in May, I presented you with a presentation that was giving you a few grants that our division had worked on. One was a Magnet Schools Assistance Grant for Hilton Head School Clusters, looking at the Hilton Head IB program, so we have a feeder pattern from the elementary up through the high school. The U.S. Department of Education has awarded us a 5-year grant for a total of $14,996, and let's just round it to $14,996 for a 5-year grant. It is working to have our IB program to extend, to the outcome to have higher amount of students participating in the accelerated classes that are provided through the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program. I've already put out for the director. That position is out live. We'll be meeting with the principals next week. I provided them the award information this morning at about 5:39, so good morning, principals, and we'll be meeting next Wednesday. So I do want to share that with you.
That concludes superintendent's report.
Thank you. So I noticed on the consent agenda, if there are no objections, I think we should postpone the approval of the October 1 meeting minutes because the votes do not have the detail that should be on the permanent record of the meeting, such as who's abstained, et cetera. So I do look at these, but I did not overlook that. I apologize. At least the copy that's here, because I didn't notice the copy online having some of those things missing, but the copy we have here in our folder, it doesn't have the detail that's necessary for who voted, who abstained. Some of them do, but not all of them. All right, is there any objection to that? We'll just postpone that to the next meeting. All right, so then we need a motion to approve the consent agenda with the two other items, the OE 12.1 to 17 and the third quarter FOIA report. Okay, thank you, Mr. Dallas. Second by Mr. Nay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And I know Ms. Hay had to leave, and what's your vote?
I'm going to vote no, as I stated earlier.
No, okay. So the motion carries. I've got to count my, sorry. The motion was made by Carlton Dallas, second by Victor Nay. And so it's the the consent agenda, the second and third items. Okay. Everyone was voting yes that's present, but Ms. Hay had to leave. Yeah. And Mr. Smith voted no. Okay. All right. Next up are the future agenda topics. We already have two. The Academics Committee will address the 2024 school report cards, and Mr. Smith will get with Dr. Rodriguez regarding what his request is for a guidance presentation. Any other agenda topics?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sorry.
Were we going to bring forward the, can you see it? Stipend schedule.
Yeah, that's on our list.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Dr. Rodriguez, do you have any announcements?
Announcements.
Okay. And we have a second public comment. Go ahead.
I'm calling you for public comment. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Are you ready?
I am ready.
If you would state your name and your topic, please. Okay.
My name is Jim.
Wait, hold on. I'm gonna put you on speaker. Hold on. Go ahead.
Are you ready? Yes. My name's Jim Miller. My name is Jim Miller. Yes. And I'm coming to you instead of in person as I have for the past several periods of meetings. I'm coming to you from California, so I'm out of town, but I feel like it's important that I talk with you. I'm coming to you. I'm sorry, I'm having to turn down the volume here. Period. I'm sorry, I'm getting backlash. Just a moment.
Mr. Miller, this is Dr. Guads, the board chair, and if you have another device, Mr. Miller, if you have another device by your phone that's got the speaker on, that's how you typically get that kind of feedback. So if you're by a computer, yeah, if you just mute that and just speak into your phone, we should be able to hear you better.
Okay.
Continue on.
I think things are better now.
Yeah.
My name's Jim Miller, and I'm coming to you from California. I'm out of town. And again, I'd like to speak about the performance of the band's program. Specifically, kind of review the study that I had, that I circulated from British Columbia. It is many instances you will see something about the how band students or music students outperform average SAT or GPA scores, etc. But that British Columbia study was much different. It took a much more scientific approach. It had a pre-test evaluation, then the actual test, and a post-test evaluation. For example, the pre-test included, it took scores on at 7th grade level of ability to perform well academically in high school. Then it had a test of actually those students who had 1 year of music education, and then a post-test of evaluating how well students did in English, math, and science. That in conjunction with the control group, because that pre-test took in account how well students might perform, but it took those who did participate in music and those who had an equal chance to perform well. The study then took this control group and compared it to how well they performed after.
Mr. Miller, your time is up,
Yes.
and thank you, and you can continue on at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have announcements.
Go ahead.
I just, this month is Breast Cancer Month Awareness, and I just wanted to let everyone know who's fighting breast cancer, who've had some type of cancer, in their, who've had some type of cancer, that I support you and keep up the fight, and we look forward to seeing you on the prevailing side, and that we do recognize that. Well, I do recognize that, and I'm sure that the district does recognize that moving forward. So we wish everyone the great fight that who may be enduring some type of cancer. Thank you.
So we are down to adjournment, and if there's no objections to adjourning, we will adjourn by unanimous consent. Good night, and thank you to everyone who joined us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Welcome.